Hey, my name's ShawNshawN. I do painting on ShawNshawN.co as well as specials on eBay. Today we're going to review the Lego Movie 2, the second part. So right off the bat, I think marketing-wise, it's just a super lame title. It has twos in it twice. Like, dude, the Lego Movie 2, why do you need more title? The second part, then you should the Lego Movie, the second part. You don't have this Lego Movie 2, the second part. I would just use maybe their title song, the Lego Movie 2, Everything Is Not Awesome. So we have the story of the digitalized Lego world. And in the first movie, you guys might have remembered it was they sung the song, Everything is Awesome, Everything is Awesome, and he drove you nuts. And in this case, the awesome city is being destroyed by these invaders. These other Lego worlds are invading Everything is Awesome world. So what happens is they end up rebuilding the world into this really ugly version so they hopefully avoid all the attacks. And Emmet, who was the hero in the Lego Movie 1, he builds this nice little cute house and they get attacked again. Everyone's mad at Emmet and all his friends get kidnapped and taken to this other realm. So he's like, no, that's not happening. I'm gonna go save my friends. So he goes to this other realm, and this other realm is ruled by this queen called Queen Watevra. And that's played by Tiffany Haddish. She's pretty funny because they're talking to them and you can tell they're villainous right off the bat, at least the way they talk, and then you're like, no one's gonna fall for this, and they sing all these annoying songs and they brainwash everyone, right, to the Everything is Awesome song, right, from the first one. That kind of comes together, and then Emmet partners with this other guy he runs into, and he has a spaceship, and they're gonna stop all his friends being kidnapped and destroy this Queen Watevra land, so then they'll be live in freedom, right? So that's kind of the crux of the story. Act 3, they have this really nice unveiling of a mystery. So they have it pretty well hidden, and then all of a sudden, boom, you have this nice twist in Act 3. I won't reveal it. I think that's really the saving grace of the movie. That makes it very interesting to have this deep, dark mystery, and then you get it uncovered in Act 3. My thoughts on the movie, it's very confusing, hard to follow, especially the first 2 acts almost. You don't know what the hell's going on or why all these people are thrown together, and they just have random people. Bruce Willis shows up and then he's not used, and then you're like, why do you throw in Bruce Willis? They have a really talented cast. You know, they have Chris Pratt playing Emmet, Elizabeth Banks playing Lucy, who's the girl he loves, who's now kind of alternative. Will Arnett plays Batman. Queen Watevra is played by Tiffany Haddish, and there's several more actors, right? It just feels like the first 2 acts are very convoluted, too much in there. You don't know what's going on, just jokes all over the place, story all over the place. They're kind of doing that a little bit to block from the third act when they do the twist, right? So you do need some kind of dead ends and stuff, but it should be more linear progress, and then you have a twist, right? But the way they do it just seems like way overbaked in the Act 1. I would have just cut that down like maybe a third of the Act 1 to really kind of get it in sync and just feel more like a progressing movie. Maybe blow up a little bit of Act 2 where Emmet meets this other guy, Rex, who's trying to help him. I think that was, a good part from Act 1. Going into Act 2, that's obviously the Act 2. And that really makes sense. Part of the Act 2, Act 3, they really make sense, but the Act 1 is just kind of all over the place. It's kind of a wreck, I think. Also because his story is very convoluted, all over the place, trying everything. The jokes don't really land well in the movie. I was with, my family, who has a niece who's 9, so that's probably the ideal target audience. She was pretty engaged. She wasn't laughing. None of the adults were really laughing. There was a chuckle here and there, and I did find myself laughing at 1 or 2 of the jokes that landed, but there's just a lot of jokes where they kind of try stuff and it just doesn't land. And I think it's just kind of a timing, pacing thing, as well as trying to do too many different angles in the story. That whole issue just really forces the humor not to work. So visually it has really great CGI. They have kind of the Lego world, and they do, obviously in the Lego world, they have some of the story is drawn, and then that is cool. And then they have a human world, so they have these 3 kind of layers. So that has a really nice impact in the story. Really, that kind of comes together in Act 3, where you see, the humans are really seeing how that has driven the whole Lego movie up to this point. So that has a really nice layering effect, and I think the animators did a good job. But again, this convoluted story in Act 1, it just kind of, they did all this great work and animating for thousands of hours, and then it's just too long. They should have cut more there. Obviously, they put a lot of effort into it, but the director should have said, "Lo, it's just too much stuff. Boil this down to maybe an hour and a half." And from the hour and 47, it's just, there's 15 minutes probably too long in this film. Or really rebuild Act 2, Act 3, make them a little longer, but Act 1 is just, acting's fine. I just get the feeling like they tried to rebake Ready Player One by Steven Spielberg, which is kind of a conglomeration of all these different stories with flashbacks to the 1980s. But that's kind of consistent, and then it's all from the 80s. It's pretty tight reference. This one kind of goes all over the place for the 80s, 90s, and doing the same thing, but it just somehow doesn't work because it doesn't pull together with the story. Why Ready Player One, somehow all those elements came together. Yeah, they needed to cut a couple parts here and there, like the Bruce Willis scene where he's crawling through the tunnels while they're trying to do a rescue, and you're like, why isn't Bruce Willis in here? If he had been earlier in this scene and he had kind of blown up a skyscraper and then he's crawling through the tunnels, that would have made total sense, right? But you need that connection where Bruce Willis is in Act 1, just briefly, and then he shows up in Act 3 or something, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But he just shows up in Act 3 randomly, you're like... And there's a lot of scenes where it's just like Act 1, they have all these random characters, Superman versus Batman, but they never use Superman, kind of, so you're like, why even have Superman in here? Or why have Justice League with Wonder Woman if it doesn't even be used? Why do you have... There's several characters that are just kind of a one-off, kind of beep, 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 we have a lot of film, we're gonna make a lot of silly jokes, and they never show up again. If they have been killed off, that would make sense. Why they don't show up in Act 2 and Act 3, but why have them if they don't have some continuity with the story? You have to have these character arc, right? And there's only really a character arc between Emmet and Lucy. There's also a character arc with Rex, this guy who kind of helps out Emmet for a while. There's a twist, which you can't, if you don't talk about it, you really can't say, but you see the difference between Queen and Batman and what's actually going on, and then the human characters that come out at the very end, you're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I think, maybe if they had used the human characters a little bit in Act 1, a little more, it wouldn't have been so... I mean, the fact they don't use them so much makes the mystery really well, and it really develops over time. They do really well in the story. But again, Act 1 is just all over the place. Just didn't work for me as a film. I just think they should have made Act 1 more consistent with the rest of the film. As far as, the characters are used throughout, and why are those characters there, and there's just too many characters. It just doesn't make sense to me, so... wanted to like this movie, and I thought it was going to be really fun. That's why I decided to go with my family, and I wouldn't normally review this, because it's a kid film. I don't know. Anyway, that's my take. Hopefully you guys like it. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you can subscribe below. And I'll see you guys on the next movie review. Thanks for watching.